Welcome to Wine Country at Work. I'm Ralph DeAmicis, your host. This is where we talk about the wine world, about wine tourism, and the winemakers who make it happen. So today, I'm talking with Clare Tooley, the Master of Wine at the Boisset organization of Jean-Charles Boisset and team. And thank you so much for doing this today, Clare.
Oh, you're so welcome. Thank you.
And tell us where we're doing this tasting.
A rather beautiful space. This is the JCB Lounge, so Jean-Charles Boisset, the lounge in St Helena, which was opened just over a year ago now, and really is a very beautiful expression, not just of course, of Jean-Charles and his French family, but also of the wines that we are showcasing here. But it's very comfortable, isn't it?
Well, it's not only comfortable, but the walls are covered with art all the way up to the ceiling.
They are, yes.
It's remarkable. It's a remarkable collection of artwork.
It is. It really is. All obviously entirely personally selected by Jean-Charles, and actually in many cases hung by him too. He was up ladders painting and hanging the paintings, and we have beautiful chandeliers here as well. It's a very personal expression actually of him, but also of creating this sense of a French with an American feel to it, very plush, very comfortable, very intimate, somewhere that you can just come and cocoon yourself. And everywhere you look, there's something very beautiful to look at. That's the point.
It's funny, if it wasn't for the fact we're in modern times, I worry about people getting Stendhal's disease,
yes.
Where people get overwhelmed by the art.
I don't think so. I think it's something that there's... The art is certainly very catching, eye-catching, but it's also all of a piece. And again, the idea here is to create somewhere where all your senses are awakened, if you like. And this is something that we believe in entirely through all the properties, actually, that carry Jean-Charles' signature. The idea that wine, obviously, is meant to evoke so much more than a simple drink. That it is also allowing you to explore so many of your other senses, not just your sense of smell and sight, but your emotions. And so creating spaces that allow you to make that time for yourself and explore how you're reacting, how you're feeling, is something that we believe in implicitly. And this particular lounge, I think, does that immaculately.
Well, you've been using it also for seminars, I believe, yes?
Yes. So one of the points of difference, if you like, with this particular lounge and space is that we have the opportunity to introduce our Burgundian range of wines. So not just our Napa and Sonoma, of which, of course, we're extraordinarily proud, but also all the other wines that the Boisset family are stewards of, owners of in France, in their native France. So we have a wall of Burgundy. But in order to really bring that wall alive, we felt it very important to have seminars, classes, tastings, interactive opportunities with people to not just explore the wines, but explore the stories, explain the region of Burgundy, talk a little bit about why it's so special, why it's always the holy grail in so many ways for winemakers and wine lovers. So we have set up a series of classes, and it's been really well received. I think the best thing about it is that we've had people talk about it, talk about when they're here with us, feeling free to express their questions, their emotions on these wines, whether they like them, whether it's the first time they've had an opportunity to sort of understand this region. Anyway, it's something that we are delighted to bring to Napa, to St Helena, to the locals, to our friends within the industry as well. And it's been a lot of fun.
Well, it's a wonderful outpost for Burgundy because
yes.
Most people here are very aware of terroir.
Exactly.
And Burgundy, of course, was the most studied terroir in France, I believe.
Exactly.
The church, when the church controlled it, they cataloged every single piece of land there.
Well, it's one of the oldest regions in the wine world, in over 1,000 years of history, and really the first region that decided to create, if you like, a sense of quality, and quality and hierarchy. And that sense of the pursuit of quality and creating some sort of appellation system or hierarchy is something that is seen now, obviously, throughout the world, or throughout the world of quality winemaking. That pursuit of something that's not just unique, but also special, qualitative, tells its own story, has a sense of purpose, is sustainable. And all of that, I think, was really brought to life first, I would say, in Burgundy, and has sort of radiated out.
Well, I think it's also interesting because Burgundy is a little bit on the edge. It's so far north.
Exactly.
It's just south of Champagne, yes, which is a very cool region compared to here in Napa. I mean,
yes.
I remember once a number of years ago, I had a friend who is a winemaker here, had come from Australia.
Yes.
And I was relatively new to the area, and it was raining during, you know, the season. And I said, it's raining. And he said, Ralph, people make wine where it rains.
Absolutely, they do. And people make wine in all sorts of extraordinary circumstances, through wars, through pandemics, through heat waves, through drought, through tempests, and so it goes on. And I think that's the beauty of wine. It's a human story as well. It's humans working hand in hand with nature, and nature doesn't give us any breaks. It's nature is in charge, and so our job, if you like, is to mitigate and see what we can do with what we're given in any given year. But then, of course, that's also the beauty of vintage variation, and that's something that we talk a lot about in Burgundy, and maybe a little less so here in California.
I remember back, I think it was in 2011, I was at a winery, small little place. They had a French winemaker. It was 2011. He was saying, I've got so many issues going on. It's been so cool. I can't get the grapes to ripen. This was on the valley floor. My vines are running out of steam. It's this and that. And I thought about it, and I thought, oh my gosh. I said to him, this is like making wine in France. He said, yes, it is.
Yes, it is. Well, and again, that's sort of the beauty of the last, many decades now of winemakers who have taken themselves off to different parts of the world, becoming flying winemakers, taking on stage and educating themselves, if you like, with other terroir, but also other circumstances and other climatic conditions, in order to sort of round their knowledge off. Because who knows? We've had so many changes, and we will continue to. I'm afraid, and that's part of the beauty of it, but it's also part of our responsibility to learn from other regions and share that sort of collaborative approach, I think, to making quality wine. We, and I say we as a sort of collective in the industry, we benefit enormously, in my opinion, from that collaborative nature, as I say, that sort of collective knowledge. I believe that we're living in a golden age for winemaking and for the wine lover. There's never really been a time where so many great wines and so many wines with intent and purpose are being made around the world, and that those wines are being enjoyed outside of their area of production. So the sort of distribution piece. So again, bringing it back to what we're doing here in St Helena, in this lovely lounge, is to say, look, here's our world in France, and we would love to share that with you. And here are the influences that are actually both from Burgundy to Napa and, of course, Sonoma. This is what we've learned from a sort of a shared knowledge of two very distinct regions, three very distinct regions: Sonoma, Napa, Burgundy. But this is ultimately what we're about. That we're about sharing wines from all sorts of different places and telling those stories and just opening people's minds and palates, I suppose, and just allowing them to, just engaging them, with this sense of exploration and discovery.
Was it Jean-Charles's commitment to education, which is very well known between his biodynamic garden at Raymond and his historical tours at Buena
Yes.
Vista. Was that one of the things that attracted you?
Oh, for sure, for sure. I've been very. I've had the pleasure of knowing Jean-Charles for actually nearly 25 years, and he's always had this extraordinary mix of a wonderful mix of the twinkle, the twinkling eyes, the fun, the passion, the enjoyment of wine and all that goes with wine, but mixed and very much running in parallel this total obsession, if you like, with the historical nature, the storytelling, the education piece, the learning, the knowledge, the wanting to share that, because the belief is that the more you know about something, the more you can enjoy it. It goes hand in hand. And yes, as someone who has also spent 30 years in an industry that I adore, and many, many years of that with my head in books and asking a lot of questions of very wise people and trying to gather as much information as possible to eventually become a master of wine, and knowing that once I became one, that was when it all started. That's when I continue to learn and to ask questions. And I want to share that sort of passion for knowledge with as many people as possible, because I do believe that's something that ultimately enhances the enjoyment of wine.
Here's an interesting question. Within the industry, of course, among winemakers for many years, all the winemakers were men. And now every year I see another woman being appointed as head winemaker.
Sure, absolutely.
And
yes.
I happen to be a lot of my favorite wines are actually made by women. I feel
Yes.
they have better palates, and I have a background in scent and flavor and such that I really appreciate that. How do you think the approach of, as a woman, your approach to wine and wine education is different from men? Do you see a particular different? I mean, we have different biology.
For sure, absolutely we do, and maybe we have different ambitions. There's a sense of nurturing, I think, which is something that I feel quite strongly. And as a woman, I'm a mother as well, and so I think that there's an element of wanting to nurture and protect and sustain. I'm not saying for a moment that isn't a natural instinct for my male counterparts, but I think that that might be something. I just think honestly, Ralph, that it's about opportunity. And I think it's been something that I've witnessed over the last 30 years, a great deal more opportunities for women, a great deal more opportunities for women in lots of different aspects of the industry. So not just in the winemaking, but also in the communication, the education, the sales, the networking. And I'm delighted to see that, because I never once felt that it was an industry that I couldn't be a part of. But now looking back, I realized that I had a lot of help along the way. I had a lot of mentors. I had role models, but both men and women, who supported me and who never questioned my ability. So I think it's opportunity that has become more a game changer, and I want to see that continue, because I think that any sustainable industry needs this sort of sense of equality and balance. And I think that both women and men bring so much to the party that it's important for both to be represented.
Well, I will give you a bit of a point of view of a tour guide.
Yes.
Whenever I see groups coming up,
yes,
more times than not, it is a group of women
yes.
than a group of men. It will be 10 groups of women for
Yes.
every one group of men.
Yes, interesting.
I mean, if it's not couples, then it's groups of women.
Interesting. I agree with you. Actually, it's what we see as well, and we're delighted to see that. Again, maybe it's that sense of wanting to spend time together outside of our usual task task-ridden lives, being able to celebrate together. I think that women do that extraordinarily well. I think that we grasp the moment. I think that we look for joy. I think we look for beauty. And I think that Napa and Sonoma and indeed, certainly, I'd like to say very much our properties celebrate that. We have very beautiful spaces.
Very beautiful.
Yes, thank you. And so absolutely. Well, thank you. And and we nurture that, and we make a point of creating spaces that are not just safe but also extraordinarily beautiful. And that, I think, is something that certainly many women appreciate.
Now, Claire, how did you get into this business?
Well, a long time ago, I fell into it. I was extraordinarily fortunate. Looking back, the benefit of hindsight, I answered an advertisement for a secretarial position for a wine merchant in Notting Hill in London. In Notting Hill. And this was the days of Notting Hill. It was, everyone knew Notting Hill from the movie. And it was, and I walked in for the interview, and there was it was a big bohemian sort of top floor of a building in Notting Hill, and there was an extraordinarily large tasting slab, which had, 50 bottles that were clearly open and had been enjoyed, or at least there was a tasting going on. And I remember thinking, goodness, is this really a job? Is this or have I walked into a party? And, looking back, thinking about it now, that's almost, maybe that's the title of my next book. Is this a job or is this a party? It was a wonderful moment. They took me on. I was a French speaker and a French writer, and I could type. Oui. And so that ultimately got me the job. I knew very little about wine, very little. My parents had always enjoyed wine. I'd been brought up in France, and so, wine was on the table, but it was never something that I had ever considered to be. Oui, voilà, c'est une partie de la vie, pas plus. And so having that opportunity to suddenly realize that wine was also a career, it was an industry, and it had so many tentacles. I could go into marketing, finance, sales, so many different things, tasting, buying, and so forth. And so that's where it started. And I've never looked back. It's been 30 years, and I've been so fortunate. It's literally taken me around the world. It's maybe opened the doors. Maybe it's opened the doors for younger people to be involved on a professional basis in the industry, and to learn not just the skills of wine tasting and wine communication, but actually hospitality. Exactly. Because fundamentally, that's what we do here, and that's what we're very, very proud of amongst the Boisset properties. It's something that we work really hard on. It's never a one and done. There's a constant need to, improve and monitor, and more importantly, resource and support our teams. My philosophy has always been that if your teams are well supported and well resourced and well trained, the guests will have a wonderful time.
Right. Well, I would think with this younger influx that your talents are especially valuable, because at that age they are just sponges for knowledge.
It's so much fun. I think one of the things I realized, and it ages me, but at the same time it's a privilege. One of the things I realize I now enjoy the most, my happy place, is spending time with younger people who, to your point, are just open to this influx of information about wine, and recognizing their own abilities to understand, to take on new information, to explore, to discover, and then, more importantly, to share that, to give that back to the next person who comes in, and I love doing that. It's one of my true joys. If I've come away from a day of training or a session with some of our team members, and I think, there we go, they've found something that they love.
Yes.
How exciting is that? Because they will inevitably go and share that with someone else.
Well, it's wonderful, too, here where you pour the Burgundies. You pour a wide variety of wines from the Burgundy area because it's expanding their palates in a way that they could not get unless they travel in that area. You know, a wine is the encapsulation of a place.
Totally.
I was at a tasting one time, and it was like 40 wine writers. It was a wine writers conference, and they had 7 wines, and you've done lots of blind tastings, I'm sure. And they were all big reds, and they said, all we want to know is, are these Merlots or are these Cabernets? And so we're sitting there, and I go across, and I taste my way across. And I'm short attention span, so I'm onto something else. And the person who's next to me is a writer for the LA Times, says, well, how did you do? And I look up and said, oh, I got all 7. Okay. She said, you did? She raises her hand and says, he got all 7. I was the only person in the room who got all 7. And I'm not a wine writer. Right. I'm a tourist writer. Yeah. And they all said, how did you do this? I said, I'm a tour guide. I've walked all these vineyards.
Exactly.
I know what these wines smell like. Exactly. I know they're not going to grow a Cabernet like this on the valley floor. Yeah. They won't. Yeah. Exactly. The soil doesn't smell like that. It smells like the vineyard. When you taste the wines of Burgundy, you are visiting Burgundy.
You are, and I hope when you taste the wines of Burgundy, if you've not been to Burgundy, then it inspires you to go there eventually. You know, and before you've even arrived there, you've had an opportunity to explore it, and that takes. That takes conversation. It takes dialogue. It takes classes. It takes an opportunity to to really line them up and taste them one by one and taste them side by side. And that's what we're doing here. We felt that it was a beautiful space in which to do that. It's quite an intimate space. It's a very beautiful space, but also. It's to your point, it's an opportunity to take people somewhere else, to let them travel through their own senses, and to let them explore at their own leisure, and Burgundy's all about that. It really is.
Well, it's interesting, too, that we were talking about languages, and both of us are multilingual, but it's hard to understand a culture really well unless you understand their language.
Yes.
It teaches you certain things about it.
Yes.
But taste takes place in the same part of the brain, the speech centers. So when you're tasting things, you're very much getting the language of the place. I oftentimes say one of the reasons it's so hard to describe a wine is that wine is its own language. Yes. Flavor is its own language.
Yes, I love that. I so agree with you. And I've spent my life trying to express wine. I've written thousands of tasting notes and thousands of essays when I was studying, and I still do, and articles, and and I still look for the right words, and they're not easy, and I've always considered that the most beautiful wines I've been privileged to taste have been the ones that I have struggled the most to express, because they are their, to your point, they are their own language. Having said that, it's a complete cop-out not to try, because you have to be able to express it in some way, if only to spark an interest in the reader or the listener to try it for themselves.
Well, it's the importance of conversation. One of the great things about this room, in fact, is the mirrors.
Yes.
In between the paintings are a group of beautiful mirrors, and then the large mirror on the back wall, which makes the space look much brighter. And then you have these beautiful crystal chandeliers. All these things stimulate conversation.
They do, and I love this about Jean-Charles and his vision. The mirrors are very important. They are also meant to bring you into the space and to bring others around you into your vision and your periphery, so that you are a part of, so that you're not set apart from the space. You are immediately involved in it. You're caught in the mirrors along with your companions, along with your fellow guests, along with people you've never met. All of a sudden they are with you too. And I love that sense of creating a community, creating a moment, a shared moment. It's something that Jean-Charles Boisset talks a lot about, but he doesn't just talk about it, he creates it. And so many of our spaces, you'll find the same at Raymond, you'll find the same at Buena Vista. These spaces are meant to be for you, and you inhabit them, and you're caught, your image is caught within that.
That's beautiful. By the way, to do a tasting here, where do they find that on the web?
Well, very easily. They can walk in, of course, if they happen to be in St Helena. We welcome walk-ins, but also we're at 1320 Main Street in St Helena, but also on the website. So the JCB collection and the JCB website. You can go on there and reserve and go through to the reservations, or indeed phone us. But we're very open. You know, it's you don't have to have an appointment.
Is this the JCP Lounge? Is that what it's called?
That's right.
There's quite a few properties, and I've been to all of them.
Well, thank you. My goodness, there are many, and they're all special, and they're all very welcoming. We have 2 JCB lounges, one here in St Helena and one in Yountville. And then, of course, we have our properties in Napa, Raymond, and Elizabeth Spencer, as well as our properties in Sonoma, Buena Vista, and Deloche.
The first.
That's right. And then we also, of course, in Napa itself, have Chateau Buena Vista, which is a really lovely experience in itself, right on First Street.
And I noticed they changed it around a little bit more to make it a little more comfortable.
We have. We've put in more chairs and more beautiful banquettes to sit on. And well, we're fortunate. We have people wanting to come in and enjoy themselves. So we are creating the space for them.
Yeah, it is. I've said this many times. You know, j'adore Jean-Charles because he makes it fun. He and his team make it fun. I know it's a lot of work to make it fun. It's not easy.
It's not, and we have the extraordinary benefit of having a team of people who is honestly, and I say this with total sincerity, it's a complete privilege working with them. They are bright, they are enthusiastic, they are extremely talented, they are wonderful hosts. They're very welcoming. They too adore the properties, the wines. And let's not forget, we have extraordinary wines. My goodness, our winemakers are talented. We have we're not just the only ones to think that. Thankfully, we have hundreds of great scores as well. But
I have had quite a few of the wines, and
well,
I will testify to that.
Yes. Well, obviously, you have to start with something that you can be proud to share. But the teams at all the properties, honestly, they're there to make your experience unique and memorable, and they take that to heart. They are extremely happy when they get the feedback, and more importantly, I think we have a lot of repeat customers, guests, members, and I like to think that that's a sign that we're doing something right. In other words, these are people who want to be a part of our world, and we absolutely want them to join us. So
exactly. Well, thank you so much.
You're welcome. My goodness, thank you for inviting me. I appreciate it.
So this is Wine Country at Work. Ralph DeAmicis. Come back and see us next time. You can find us at winecountryatwork.com, and be well.